Scene 5.
"Welcome to the Velvet Sheath," Zara said, ushering Kit inside the brothel's foyer. A heady taint of rosewater and lavender, mingling with the sour reek of sweat and spilled ale, assaulted Kit as she crossed the threshold, her eyes watering at the greasy smoke curling from flickering tallow candles. A well-dressed man sat in an armchair by the hearth, drinking a tankard of ale. In his lap was perched a waifish young woman, scarce older than Kit, with mousy brown hair and wearing a faded blue kirtle, her stay propping up a faint swell of bosom. She laughed at something he said, covering her mouth, and the man with patched hose ambled over to them. Beyond that, the main room was empty, save for scattered benches and an ale barrel festooned with tattered crepe paper ivy, which also climbed the pillars. "The bawdiest in all the Baywalk stews?" Kit asked. Zara was about to reply when a statuesque and buxom young woman with long, curling gold hair glided down the stairs, calling out cheerfully as her bosom threatened to bounce out of her tightly cinched stay. She might have had the smallest waist Kit had ever seen. "Zara, love, whatever have you dragged in here off Puppercurty Lane?" the woman asked, eyeing Kit up and down. "Why, I don't wager the lad even has hair on his stones yet." "For me? Really, you shouldn't have." "Don't be ridiculous, Chastity," the tiny girl said, abandoning the well-dressed lap to come over and lay a dainty hand on Kit's shoulder. "You'd break the poor colt." She smiled up at Kit. "I'm Rose." Kit nodded, unsure of how to reply at the moment. Rose was even smaller up close, practically elfish, petite to the point of etherealness. Her hair framed a heart-shaped face with wide hazel eyes ringed by dark circles that somehow looked coquettishly mischievous and profoundly sad at the same time, like a fairy queen. "I do believe you've enchanted him with one of your folk charms," Chastity said to Rose with a laugh. "Afraid he's not for you," Zara told them both. "The young squire's here to see Chócht." Chastity spread her silk fan, fluttering it over her heaving bosom. "Oh, pity. So rare to have the opportunity to teach a young man how to use his cock properly. Alas." She bopped Kit's nose with her fan and then turned, crossing the foyer to engage the two men in conversation, her wide hips swaying with well-honed technique. "Well," Rose said, cocking her head to the side and smiling at Kit, "if you find yourself with free time after your business with the good captain is concluded, you know where to find me. My schedule is wide open this Bloom Close." "Up the stairs," Zara told Kit. "All the way to the very top. Don't get lost, and knock hard. Captain can be hard of hearing." "Oh, I'd be happy to escort him," Rose said brightly. "To your palate, perhaps," Zara said. "I'll not have you seducing the lad twixt here and there." "Swear by Cardishaw's skin I wouldn't dream of it," Rose assured her, taking Kit's hand and dragging her over to the stairs. "At least not before he talks to the captain," she added over a pale shoulder. "After, well, that's none of your business, isn't?" She squeezed Kit's hand. "Come then, I'll see you don't get lost. You never gave me the pleasure of your name." "Kit." "Oh, Christopher is a fine name," Rose agreed. "No, just Kit." Young women flirted with her now and again when she played the young knight or dashing prince, but never so forwardly, and men never flirted with her at all. She decided it was time to break out the Chaste Innocent. "I'm quite earnest, just Kit," Rose said as they climbed the stairs. "If you fancy a tumble, I'm keen to oblige you." She dropped her voice and whispered into Kit's ear. "For free, but don't tell anyone." She put a finger to her lips and Kit nodded seriously, then shook her head. "Your kindness honours me, but I'm bound to the captain's service this Bloom Close. I mean no offence." Rose gave a light musical laugh. Not even a quick tup, bending me o'er in the broom closet. Kit mocked a swallow and gripped the stair rail as if steadying herself as her cheeks reddened. I'm sworn to keep my path true. By the martyrs, spare my virtue. She took a cautious step upward, eyes flickering with feigned panic. Blushing on command was one of her better talents. Crying, too. She could do both at once if the role called for it. Ho-ho-ho! Rose clapped her hands. I knew it! You're a virgin! By-skin, that makes a lass wanton. She grabbed Kit's hand and clapped it to her skirt between her legs. Can you feel how my loins quiver? Freezing, Kit jerked her hand back from Rose's skirt as if stung. She'd played the chaste innocent 100 times and never once lost her composure. Yet somehow this wisp of a woman had slipped clean past her guard, and that rattled her more than the hand between the legs. Stepping back, she nearly missed a stare and clutched her cap to her chest as she caught her balance, forcing her voice to rise in a controlled squeak. By the martyr's grace, I'm unversed in such loins and quiverings. Rose chortled. Very well, Master Kit. I'll spare your virtue. She narrowed her eyes. For now. Taking her hand, Rose led Kit up to the 3rd floor. Skeen, I haven't had this much fun in... ever. Forgive my amusement at your expense, but I sorely needed a good laugh. Kit took a breath to steady her nerves, annoyed that Rose's provocations had rattled her. When they reached the landing, they nearly ran into the burly little man called Cannon. Hiking up his breeches, he nodded to Rose, then eyed Kit and thumbed to the door behind him. Scarlet might need a while to recover. Powder like a Springfield, I did. He held up 3 stubby fingers proudly, his pale grey eyes sparkling. Thrice. Good and proper, too, like a lady deserves. He held out a hand. Cannon, at your service. As Kit shook his hand, an older woman wearing a dirty cap came storming down the hall, long skirts swishing. Cannon, there you are, you club-cocked cur! Ugh. Cannon rubbed his face and turned to the woman. 'Tis like the glorious blooming whene'er you appear, Madame de la Rue. I've heard tell Scarlet is advancing you credit, craven knave. She glared down at him. Her skin was a tallow map of wrinkles and pox scars, and her shriveled dugs were cinched up so tight Kit was afraid they might burst. Last time you swived Scarlet, she was no use to me for the rest of the bloom close. By-skin, wee man, were you just at her again? Maybe, Cannon mumbled. Craven jade must be made of cheverel. The madam held out a hand and jabbed her palm hard with a finger. Silver up front or find somewhere else to sheathe your monstrous yard than one of my girls. No more credit, hear me? Kit and Rose sidled past them as de la Rue continued to badger the man and bemoan taking cutthroats under her roof, and they mounted the next flight of stairs in a hurry. Old Rue makes an infernal fuss about the captain and his crew lodging here, Rose explained breathlessly. But not enough to turn down 5 whole shillings a week. The final stretch to the 5th floor loft was more of a narrow sloped ladder than stairs, and led to a warped door sagging on rusted hinges. Rose turned to Kit. Here you are then, Master Kit, delivered safe and with your virtue intact. It was a pleasure, Kit replied, holding out her hand. Rose ignored it and kissed Kit's cheek. You're a sweet lad. She pulled Kit's cap over her eyes. Would have swived you like a minx, I would have. Laughing, she punched Kit's arm and went back down the stairs. Kit looked up the steep stairs and took a deep breath before climbing them. Once at the top, she hesitated for a good long spell, swallowed the lump in her throat, and then knocked twice, hard. When there was no answer, she knocked again, harder. Swive the martyrs with a devil's flaying yard, a deep, gravelly voice bellowed.
Are you trying to beat the poxed door off its shite-stained hinges?
Sorry, Kit called through the door. "'Tis Kit. I mean, the lad who ain't a lad what pinched your purse." She heard the scraping of a chair across a wooden floor and heavy boots thumping before the door creaked open like all the damned souls in the void. The captain filled the doorway, and Kit craned her neck to meet his glare. His left eye twitched. "I gave Zara back your purse," she said. He stepped aside and ushered her into the attic loft. It was cramped and cluttered, lit only by a lonely, guttering lamp, and smelled of stale sweat, bad aquavitae, and regret. He turned the chair around and straddled it, the wood creaking under his weight, and leaned against the back, indicating the sagging bed with a scarred hand.
"So, Kit, ist?"
he said. She nodded and sat on the bed, its ropes creaking. "What happens now? Zara said you were interested in my fingers, but I don't see why, seeing as you caught me."
"That I did, but most wouldn't have noticed. Me, you see."
He tapped his nose with a thick, gnarled finger.
"I got a knack for catching things that don't want to be caught."
"So you're looking for me to pinch something for you? I'm a player first, purse cutter second, and never a burglar."
"Maybe, maybe not."
He pushed up his sleeves, exposing ropey forearms covered with a mess of livid scars, and then reached over to his desk and plucked up a broadside, pursing his lips as he scanned it. Pulling a pair of brass-rimmed spectacles out of his doublet, he put them on and cleared his throat.
"By the grace of Her Majesty's Justice, a proclamation from the Sheriff's Men of Fryhaven, under the command of the Right Honourable Lord Umberlow."
Kit froze, and her breath caught as he read on.
"All true subjects take heed. The base craven wench Catherine Tarleton, a dissembling vagrant, is fled from Elm's Henge, having committed the most heinous and unnatural murder of the virtuous Master Richard Percy, heir to the noble Baron of Umberlow."
She gasped, and her hands flew to her face. If he died from his wounds, it didn't just mean a flogging and perhaps a long stretch in the jail anymore. She'd be hanged. Chócht ignored her.
"The godly gentleman, struck down in the flower of his youth, was felled by the hand of this wicked, freckled trull, whose soul is stained with blood. Mark her well. The wanton jade hath auburn tresses, green eyes that gleam with devilry, a wan and ghostly countenance, flecked with motes of reddish hue, as if marked by Asdrael's own quill, and a lean, scrawny frame, unfit for honest labour. She is known to sport the motley garb of a strolling player, with a tongue honed for deceit."
Pausing to look her up and down, he snorted and pushed his spectacles up on the bridge of his nose. Then he tapped the paper.
"Now this is where it becomes interesting. £5 sterling is offered for the capture of this lewd strumpet, be she taken living or dead. Let no man shelter this foul creature, lest he incur the wrath of the flayed god and Her Majesty's law," etc., etc. It naturally continues on for some length with moralising rhetoric and calls to civic duty.
He held the broadside out to her.
"Not the most flattering depiction. I'd wager you agree."
Kit's vision tunnelled as she peered at the woodcut of a hideous, spotted woman with a bloody cleaver standing over the splayed body of a man. £5 was more than her entire troop brought in over a full season, sometimes even an entire harvest. Clutching the fabric of her slops with white knuckles, she exhaled slowly as Chócht put the broadside back on the desk and removed his spectacles.
He pointed to her with them. "Is't true, Catherine? Did you murder Lord Umberlow's heir?
She considered bolting for the door, but doubted she'd make it far. After a long, tense moment, she nodded.
What were the circumstances?
He asked. She furrowed her brow. Nobody ever cared about that. She was a travelling player, little better than a vagrant, and the randy lout was a lord's eldest son. She'd hang regardless. Chócht simply raised an eyebrow and waited for her to reply. "'Twas an accident," she finally said, a tremor forming in her voice as she recalled the episode. "He made unwanted advances, and when I protested, he became violent." She cast her eyes about the loft helplessly. "The silverware was under me on the table, so I grabbed a knife and then I ran. Haven't stopped running since." Chócht grunted in reply. "What now?" she asked. "You sell me to Lord Umberlow for the noose?" She figured it was best just to get this over with. She'd given the slip and then... She didn't know what then. She'd just keep running.
I could, he considered. £5 is a lot of coin for one wicked, freckled trull.
"I ain't no trull," she replied hotly. "I might be wicked and freckled, but I'm still a maid."
"Truly?"
he asked. When she replied with a scowl, he chuckled and held up his hands.
"No slight on your virtue intended. That coin'd fill our coffers, aye, but a lass who can nick a purse under my nose'll earn us tenfold in scarce a dozen moons. So no, I don't reckon I'm going to sell you to that cankered noble. Incidentally, due to your gender and youth, you'd likely be beheaded, not hanged. But removing your head from your shoulders would be a waste of your talents." He pointed at her. "But that means you're indebted to me for £5, so I own your scrawny arse now." She furrowed her brow.
"Like an indenture?"
"Think of it more as an apprenticeship. You're scrappy, not half-addled in the head, and show promise." He tapped his nose again. "I can smell potential."
It could be worse, she supposed. In fact, it could be a lot worse. Zara wasn't wrong about her odds of surviving on these streets alone. "What exactly do you do?" she asked.
"Little bit of this, little bit of that." He waggled a hand. "We're not picky and we don't ask questions."
"So you're thieves?"
He looked offended. "Nay, we're no mere rogues or sellswords, but problem solvers. A fellowship of uncommon talents, if you will. We do dirty deeds, dirt cheap, and with decided discretion."
He stood from the chair and cracked his big knuckles.
"It'd be wise to keep wearing breeches and hiding your dugs for now. We'll get you better clothes than those rags you're wearing. So, what do you say? You in?"
Kit eyed him. "Doesn't sound like I have a choice."
"That's the spirit, lass. Then let me be the first to welcome you to the Stygian Blades Mercenary Company."
He strode over and took her hand in a crushing grip, pumping her arm.
"You can sleep in the stable loft. Zara will see to getting you settled."